Hello, nice to
Well,
meet
Jake,
you.
it doesn't matter. Whoever wants to go first. That's all
Go
good.
for it, Daniel.
Hello, Jake, and nice to meet you. I'm talking out of Austin, Texas, on the southwest side of it. Um, so I'm not really sure where you're coming from, but that's where I'm coming from.
Awesome. My name is Jake Lamb. I am currently in Oklahoma City, where Dickens and I worked together at Paycom for a number of years. And he's recently relocated to Austin, as I'm sure you know, and I'm looking to move out of Oklahoma City as well in the next year or so. But I have experience in leadership and product for a number of years, and recently my thing has been really focused around AI. Obviously, with the big boom with LLMs, I've really worked on building a large amount of knowledge there, working with some of the leading APIs as well as some of the open source models. And with Dickens, we've been working together now for on and off for a year or so, but intensely this year in 2024 to really start building out some product offerings in the AI space. Doing some limited consulting as well. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. I mean, I've been it's been about 10 years in the corporate world in different roles, but I have kind of a mix of technical and sort of product type background in my career. So
Okay. So I didn't give you my technical background. Actually, I just noticed. I just told you where I'm at. So my background goes back to originally being from Europe and having studied languages throughout the years and getting a degree in languages in 1991 with a minor in psychology. And at the time, I decided that computer science was also in the field of linguistics, right? Because you're talking to a machine at that point, and machines actually do what you tell them to, which is a lot better than people in most cases. Once you get deeper into it, then you see, okay, what is my return value? And your return value doesn't meet your expectations, then it's just a problem with the developer, right? What did you put in? So yeah, that's what I did. Then I decided to go to work for Dell in 1995. I was already at that point. I worked for Microsoft for a year. They were here in Austin, and after that 1 year, Microsoft decided to pull out of Austin. So I went to work for Dell instead, and then I switched to completely software in 1999 by learning this product called Remedy, and that got purchased by BMC after a while, and I worked for them for 18 years doing integrations, basically connecting data from one place to another, and which mostly is like, what is my data type here, what is the data type over there, type of thing. And that put me on a path of automation over all these years, right? So automating basically the data transfers, which then end up serving management in a shape or form of a report, and that report then gives them daily or weekly insight into how their business is doing, right? And on top of that is the configuration management, which is something I've worked on since 2004, roughly, so 20 years. And last meeting we had with Dickens over here was, what is the CMDB and how do you actually define a model in a data structure? So from what I'm finding, actually, that not a lot of people are familiar with the CMDB and what does it do and why do you need it. But the best and shortest way to explain what the CMDB is would be, a parent to parent relationship with a child. Okay, if both parents are holding the child's hands, right, then you have a relationship which has an inheritance and therefore an impact. If a parent lets go, then there's an impact from one of the parents, right? So I'm translating this into business services where you have a platform and portfolio. The platform and portfolio is closely watched by the CFO, the chief financial people, who are then measuring your daily burn of your platform and hopefully have an offsetting portfolio that brings return on that investment to make sure that we still continue funding a certain thing next year, right, based on these trends. So that's what I've been doing for the last 20 years for corporate clients. At this point, the automations that are in place, my goal, like what is the number one problem that I see in the space that we work in is communication, definitely. between the developers that are, sitting at the potential problem solution, but not getting effective communication of what actually needs to be solved and continue to be solved over time. Okay, so yeah. This was actually when I listened to Dickens when I met him here in Austin at the factory, Capital Factory. What he was describing was exactly that. Do you go and train executives or people in management to actually listen to what their development people are telling them, rather than tuning out because you have an upcoming meeting that's related to some sort of agile process or ADO, and so people are really focusing now on these agile processes, and they put in these blinders like a horse in a race. What is it I'm looking at? Well, is my item or is my task completed today? And that's kind of where it ends. They don't care about retrospectives. They don't understand why the retrospectives are important, and that if that improved, you're gonna find the company that's doing much better as far as like a global competition. For the local players, who cares? The city, who cares? But we're talking about global competition now, especially with cryptocurrency coming in and having the opportunity to actually exchange money between any country you want, any wallet to another wallet, which I don't know if I want to talk about it here, but I have been successfully paying people in other countries to get projects that are, then evaluated here in the United States. So, yeah. Can't hear you. You're muted. You're muted.
Dickens, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Jake and I were working together yesterday, going even deeper into sort of the model that I shared and talked about at the at the factory, and the component of how you listen, learn, right, relative to the performance, right,
yeah,
of that team, of that developer, of that group, and how they communicate that out, right, to the CFO, to the business leaders, to whoever cares, right, who really cares and what matters to them. And it's really strengthening those elements of your team is the most critical thing for better performance, not necessarily the technical skills.
Right.
I think that's just supplemental to that. So so the reason this came up, because as Jake and I were talking, the application of the model that he and I are working on together typically can apply in areas that may not seem like typical, right? I don't think of a database team or developers, to that way that can use a model like that. But the fact of the matter is that I think it's ideal for those types of kind of roles and positions. So which is why I wanted him to join the call with us today and really just learn a little bit more about what you're seeing, what you're thinking. You sent that list of items that you wanted to cover today. We can cover through that, and that can really help us see that synergies and the connection with what we're working on and what you're doing too. So
okay, yeah. So I looked at, so if I pick a specific company I work with right now, I don't want to make that public, right? Because it comes with NDEs, etc., right?
Sure.
So
right.
I'm picking the new market that's out there, which is basically cryptocurrency and the way financing is going to be done in the future, right? And I picked one of those things, which is called Aerodrome Financial. There's actually another one I just found yesterday that was climbing in performance, but their volume is really low. So that particular financial backing in cryptocurrency and the blockchain that's associated with it, in one of the cases I've done Algorand, and Algorand, for me, I've been researching them for years, and for me, the number one failure for them is their management. Okay, so they have like two different heads. It's like a hydra of two heads, and the one head is marketing through an office that's in Singapore. And if you follow those people, you can tell that their persona is really more, I'm a contributor to the world's, global warming by having carbon offsets. It's like, dude, when are you actually going to talk about your product, which is Algorand, right? are you producing Algorand? So how do you then reach that kind of a person? So actually, this is a use case that I did. I did a video on my YouTube channel talking about Algorand and how kind of disassociated and seemingly a cryptocurrency that could be sunsetting soon. And overnight, and I published this video, and within 12 hours I got an email from them saying, oh, by the way, we've done this. And it was from a developer portal. So the developer actually sent me information. Here's where we go. Here is where our exploring is done, and so on. So in that team, right, you have a relationship between this developer and marketing team. And so let me back up over here. I said that I got into software back in 1999, and one of the things that I did back then was I was literally just mapping one place to another as far as like a gateway goes. And I was in the same office because it was a startup, it was a small office, and I sat literally next door to marketing team. Okay, so the developer guys that were arriving in Toyotas and Hondas, and marketing team arrived in Ferraris and Porsches. Okay, and they really were not able actually to sell the product because they really didn't understand what they were selling. They were good at producing documentation, they were great at producing colored diagrams of what connects here, but when you actually asked the question, they didn't understand what the benefit was to the public. So it was very difficult to actually promote. This company was called IT Masters back then. It was difficult to promote what the product is actually doing. Okay, and it wasn't until an actually I want to use these bridge. So over the last 2 years, we had 2 or maybe even more cases where a ship got stuck in a channel somewhere. Right? We had one in the Suez Canal, and we had one that just hit the bridge in. Where is it at?
Baltimore.
Portsmouth, yeah.
In Baltimore.
In Baltimore. So what effect does it have on the rest of the world, right? So well, for one, immediately your platform is bleeding because your portfolio is coming to a halt, okay? So it wasn't until then Amazon actually was trying to, back to 2002 roughly, Amazon lost control over their servers, and it was something like 15 hours or something like that, maybe 5 hours, whatever it was. But I remember that we were selling the product for $25,000 per event processor. Okay, this is actually an early version of an AI which listened on the network, and based on the events that it was producing in the log files, it would create a status of a CI on the net to show, where's the impact, how much money is being bled. So 20 years ago, we already had this type of technology. So within those 5 or 15 hours, again, I don't remember exactly the numbers, but they lost, I think it was roughly $3 million in sales in that period, okay? And it was because they did not get notified by somebody. They had no idea this was going on. And they had people that were basically, they went off to lunch or they was on over the weekend, whatever it was. Well, suddenly the $25,000 was a bargain price to allow, the network technology to automatically notify somebody, right? And then it wasn't just the 25. Immediately we're selling stuff at, 4 core server. So we had like 4 engines, so $100,000 per sale. And it picked up so fast that we got picked up by BMC, and BMC bought us out and paid us retention bonuses and all these things. So that's a use case of where 20 years ago you had a situation where the marketing wasn't really succeeding, yet they were getting paid really well. So you have a bleeding portfolio actually there. The portfolio doesn't really bring in anything. It doesn't connect with the platform because they're understanding. And over time, the visualization of all this stuff, which is what the CMDB eventually brought in, is that if I'm going to bring a field of view where you see dots connected with lines, okay, so you have, like I said, you have a team that's managed, and I'm going to use something like Azure. Okay, so let's say you have a team that's paying for Azure, making sure that Azure is available, that the communication with Microsoft is correct, and you can, if there was any outage, you can immediately connect with Azure. But most of Azure currently is automated, right? I would say almost all of it is automated. So the connection then is, how do you create a product, right? How do you create a product that goes forward where you step on the podium somewhere and then give a presentation and a speech, which I don't know if you've attended any of the other investment presentations there at the Capital Factory or anywhere else during the South by Southwest stuff. No. Usually you have, again, and I'm seeing the same pattern, is that you have well-dressed people that are well-kept, their teeth are great, their glasses look great, but they don't, when you actually ask them afterwards, what are the problems that you're trying to solve, all they know is what they've written down in a paragraph like a poetry, and they can recite that, but in going deeper, they're not able to do it. They have to go reach and find the actual now it's going to be like AI component. It's actually taking in some heuristics, to say, okay, this is a condition that I'm trying to resolve, and I've encountered a new condition which I cannot resolve on my own. So now you have to go back from that AI, find the actual people, find the developer. In many cases, they've been let go, or they have aged out, they've retired, and so on. And I see this as an ongoing problem as time goes forward. Within the next 100 years, you're going to have a lot of people that have basically left the industry but were the key of the operation. Have you guys seen this movie called Brazil? Highly recommend. It's an old movie, okay? Brazil. It's movie about chaos, okay? And in this movie, they have this architect that architected everything. It's similar to Blade Runner, maybe different perspective on it. But you have a guy that basically knew, he was the ghost guy that knew everything, but they were aging him out, right? And that's happening across companies, which is actually my gigs are going in and do a sunset of a particular product within a company. Why? Because the people that were running it or creating it have gone to somewhere else, okay? Or they were not getting paid enough, there was an accident or something like that, right? Where you have that communication piece to actually say, what is it that is your current problem, right? So simplifying all of this thing to two different things, again, those two components of a business service. Hey, what is your platform currently? And then many people that you talk to will give you a different answer of what they think a platform is, okay? So this is going back to the CMDB. CMDB defines it in a set of attributes that have already been predetermined. I can tell you that this platform is made out of these components, and this is, at least the exhaust is the money. Okay, so we're paying this much for that particular, the size of that platform, and how many portfolios do we have in place that actually help us offset that cost? And if the answer is we have no portfolios, your question would be, as a consultant, why are you having that platform, right? So we can save you immediately. Not only can we understand what the platform is, but we can also recommend some other platform that may be cheaper and easier to administer that's next, okay? And those things are happening as people come out of colleges, there's going to be the next, oh my God, I hate using Zuckerberg as an example, but like Zuckerberg was right place, right time, okay? And there's going to be more of those, And so there's another new product actually called Tanium, and Tanium is competing with the other big giants that don't even know that this product is really out there right now, okay? So I'm going to let you comment on what I said right here, because that's a lot of stuff.
You can go first, Jake, if you have any thoughts or questions.
Yeah, so it sounds like, to kind of summarize, it's really the CMDB is kind of a, abstraction of the business behind a, product, right? It's taking kind of the costs and the outages and things, and then putting it up against a portfolio to try to kind of balance that cost out, right? And then the challenge is really the disconnect between different groups within the business itself. So, you have non-technical people and technical people. They're not really being connected in critical situations, like an example you gave, of Amazon, but then just general business as well, right? They're not really being, sort of the communication's not there, right? And so there's kind of, you're seeing, Daniel, that there's sort of a need for an overlay kind of way of communicating and evaluating, performance, like what Dickens and I have talked about, to kind of address this particular challenge, within the IT space. And I think that's pretty interesting. I've actually heard of Tanium. They have some pretty aggressive sales reps, and last couple places I've been, they hit me up a lot about it, and I wasn't really in a position where I was able to buy a product like that, but I did explore it a little bit. Yeah, it's very interesting what you can do with that sort of thing, right? Because then they're really chasing a lot of the latest trends too with I think some working on some AI and stuff like that that can further enhance, the understanding and ability to be able to deliver these notifications and stuff effectively. So, that's general comments, but definitely interested to hear a little bit more. And I'll turn it over to you, Dickens.
So I'm typing a chat in a chat over here. One thing that I want to correct on what I said, it's the CMDB doesn't do these things. It's a source of truth. CMDB is the source of truth, and it's the source of record kept in schema found in a relational database. You now have to understand what to do with it. Yeah, so that's the portfolio.
Gotcha. Okay. So the portfolio is not part of the CMDB, but it's more, you're talking about kind of the next layer up of business that goes over the CMDB.
What it does, it identifies it for you. You look at two business services and you go, what business service is this? Okay. And there's an attribute that says this is a portfolio, and then the other one is this is a platform, right? So that way you quickly identify what do you need to focus in. So if you are familiar with these things and you walk in onto the floor of any large organization that's globally running their business, you ask them for a CMDB, and if, when you look at the CMDB and it says, okay, where are your business services defined, and you want to look at the attributes where the portfolio equals true. Okay, you want to look at where platform equals true, and that gives you a report, and it immediately gives you the burn rate of the company. Within 20 minutes of walking on the floor, you're going to have that information, which is tremendously helpful to somebody who comes in, tries to do financial assistance, or management basically for their company. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Interesting. So I know, Daniel, you mentioned earlier you're not in a position to really get into the existing clients, so you don't need to go into specificity in terms of who they are and things like that. However, with the opportunity, I'm thinking more about the opportunity, right? To at least begin introducing sort of some concepts, how we see this connecting with some real world practical scenarios.
Exactly.
Do you see
Yes.
that?
Yes.
Where you are now, right, with some of your clients, right? Because it doesn't seem like there are solutions like this available now, right? But if we can, really roll our sleeves up and see and explore, because it's theoretical, at least for me right now, and I think Jake has probably a stronger grasp, but that's why he and I make a good team together. And in terms of how ultimately something can be evolved into an offering, a solution to market. So
I'm a movie buff. I love movies, and I like to use this visualization. You ever seen like a team of, let's say, 4 or 5 people walking down the street, and a couple of them have capes, maybe they have masks, and they're walking in a slow motion towards the camera. You know why they're walking your way, because you know that they're superheroes, right? Well, now let's take away the no, right? And then you have 5 people walking towards you in an alley. What's going on, right? What's going on? So the understanding of what is it that you were looking at right now is super important. And the narrative in the story is like when you walk into that company, like I said, is who are these people coming in, right? So you are thinking about doing consulting, okay? So let's say that the 3 of us walking down the alley towards a client, right? And without the aura, without the charisma, without the background story, and the culture, as you said, I love that word, right? You have no idea who these people are, right? So the first thing actually that you would need to develop is reputation. Right? Who are you? Right? What is my cape? Yeah.
So interesting, because in that visual is context matters, right? And so, the same group walking down the alley versus walking down a lit space, right, is if one person is recognized, if there's four, right, and one of the four is recognized as the hero, then by association, the other ones behind there are also considered heroes, right?
Well,
those heroes are hanging together to some degree, right?
That's assuming you have one hero. But
so I value your point, and I'm saying from a background point of view, because you have these clients, right? Or you're working with these particular companies or clients, right? Is there a way for us to understand even further with you, obviously maintaining that relationship? I'm not saying that we would do that, but it's a matter of really, let's see and understand, like, is there something here? So
right. So let me answer that with this particular perspective in the use case, which is there's a product. So let's say there are two products that this company, BMC Software, is making. One of them is called Discovery, and the other one is Asset Management, Change Management, ITSM, basically. Okay, Service Management. So,
wait, can I interrupt you really quick?
Yeah.
Just really quick. Does ServiceNow also offer a similar product like this?
Yes. So there is an actual bridge there where the discovery team, is capable of pushing the data into ServiceNow and the BMC CMDB. So both CMDB, ServiceNow, and BMC are benefactors of discovery. Okay. So it makes sense that from within BMC you would have those two teams separated, but they're like completely separated. People on the discovery team don't know the staff members of the CMDB team and vice versa. Okay. But when you actually go into the field and you work with customers, they expect you to know everything. They expect you to know discovery. They expect you to know ITSM, CMDB, and all that stuff. Okay, as if it was just like, I'm gonna get a sandwich at McDonald's, and all I really need is a burger patty, cheese, bun, and some lettuce. Okay, they're simplifying these things so that when you actually try to get help from that particular software vendor, you now have to talk to at least two people and be lucky that on that day you actually were successful getting those two subject matter experts onto that call that can help you to take it forward, right? Because you have missing components here. And again, here the information is the product, okay? What is the most expensive thing today? And that is delay in making progress, right? If I'm making $1 million an hour and I'm delaying that particular component from not working by, let's say, 12 hours next day, I am losing $24 million a day if it's 24-hour delay, right? So the companies that I work with, in many cases, they've actually chosen India as their support bridge. And people in India work on a 12-hour schedule, 12-hour away from our time frame, so they have to be awake in the middle of the night and still have a life during the day. So when they're trying to support things at the middle of their night, their quality of solution is suffering. Okay, so let's say that you have an army of people. You have, let's say, 1 million-man army. They're being led by a general. Okay, where's the general from? So in the United States, again, as a country, that's kind of trying to put pressure on the financial configuration of the entire planet currently through regulating cryptocurrency right now. You have organizations out there that are currently small, but they will grow over time, right? So when we're having a meeting like this, we're not talking about what are we going to do tomorrow. We're talking about what are we going to do a year from now, 5 years from now, and so on. Why? Because we'll still be alive, okay? So the things that matter today, you can plan out your future by becoming an expert and having that superhero team that can come in as a consulting company where you have not that just one superhero, but that, like I said, team of 4 or 5 superheroes that each has a subject matter expert angle or corner, right, to come in and work together. So look at music, okay? You have some great music that comes out there from bands, and what destroys the band? It's usually an ego, right? The singer has a bigger ego than the guitar player, whatnot, and so on. So you end up with, a band that falls apart very quickly. In consulting, that can happen as well. If you have like marketing people that are marketing your consulting, it's going to remove a component that's important for you to actually get your notoriety out there. Who am I? Again, if you remove that, so you need to find people that are from the beginning, understanding what is it we're trying to achieve, and not think in terms of what does this do for me, but what does this do for us, right? Go into the next step, creating maybe an LLC or an actual company, and there's things out there already, but again, as I've been dealing with these things for the last couple of years, it's very disjointed. They have come up with templates, and templates are super inefficient, becoming super unusable very quickly, because now automation, AI is basically, if I have a comparison here to human life, right? You have a baby that's born today, and it takes how long before they can actually be effective at work? Maybe 20 years or so. AI was born last year, and it's already ready to do work. Maybe by next year, there's going to be maybe employees that are running as an AI, right? So yeah.
Okay. So where does that leave us?
Well, that leaves us with.
You'd mentioned that you have that show, that podcast. You talk about that. Can you actually, before I ask the answer to that question, let me ask this one. Tell us a little bit more about that. Tell us about your audience. What kind of conversations are you having? Is it more of you share your perspective and thoughts and you get it out there, and then people may, from a chat point of view, just to help us understand more about how you're engaging in this conversation?
Sure. So it's mostly listening to a problem and then coming up with a solution that is not the same for everyone. Okay. So you have a custom solution for a issue that comes across my desk, and I fix it, solve it, and then I go to YouTube and I create a video that basically says this is how I did it. And in most cases, I don't publish it publicly. I publish it for myself only, or for the people that participate in the project, so you can go back and listen in to what the original goals were. Okay. So the channel that I created is called CMDB for college students, and the reason is because my son is actually in college, and he's studying business, he's studying accounting, so I share that for him so he can get his real world experience, not just from listening to me talk about it, but also seeing some concrete example. So over the years, I did this one. I was gonna do a podcast, but I used WebEx for this thing, and WebEx notoriously let me down by not allowing anybody in. So I just basically ended up doing it personal in one. I just took the PowerPoint slide and I went over it. It was kind of pissed off, so I probably need to redo it. But I published that, and that became of interest to companies like BMC that were trying to learn from what does it actually take to migrate a platform. And in this case, it was a platform migration from ServiceNow to BMC. What challenges were there in place? And one of the actually things that I didn't realize before this is that everywhere you go, you're going to have a team that's supportive, and then you're going to have a team or part of the group that's actually going to try to sabotage you. Okay. So unfortunately, it's a reality of things. People that don't want your product to succeed or don't want your project to succeed, because it basically means that their solution or whatever it is that they're working on will come to an end. Their portfolio is coming to an end. So you'll have sabotage, and those are things that I didn't really realize at the beginning. So when you go in, ask these questions right away. Who are the teams? Who is the sponsor? Who is the sponsor that's paying for this stuff, and who are his who are the competition of that particular person, right? So again, in your case, your portfolio, right? You specifically, Dickens, I don't know if you and Jake share this thing, but you come in and then you identify a leader that needs to be educated, trained, right? And what is...
In a manner of speaking, yeah.
Okay, yeah. What is in your booklet that says, here's what you need to have? Okay, what is... okay, maybe the training takes 5 days. What do you do on day one? Okay. Now, I've actually gone through many trainings like these, and I can tell you that after day 3, nobody remembers a single thing. Okay. So the first day is like very happy. Second day, oh, I'm here again. Third day, okay, I hope this is over. Thursday and Friday is totally useless. Nobody remembers anything, right? So you really have like 3 days to actually bring in, and so that your portfolio here, the 3-day engagement.
Today's world, you have less than that because the attention span is far shorter,
Right.
shorter now, regardless of age. It's not a generational thing. It's a people thing. So, present company included.
So, when you arrive somewhere, jumping out of that running truck, as they say, or I'm not sure if that's exactly the expression, does your booklet identify the components of an enterprise level company to say, okay, this is what matters, and here's what you can do actually to deliver to bring the ROI to a much shorter cycle rather than it taking 6 months, a year, and so on, right? So that's my question for you. Do you have such a?
So let me see if I understand the question. Is it what's our offering? What do we provide? What do we the service? If that's what the question is, it's less about here's a 5-day training course and then we're going to take you through this training, right? It is more a methodology, an approach to how you align performance and your results and your outcome, your business results with what's the mindset, then the skills and capabilities that are needed to be successful on that project,
Okay.
or that goal.
So that mindset right there, that mindset is that portfolio that you're going to influence. You're going to be influencing that, correct? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, that is correct. So that's what you could consider as that portfolio. And so that every organization, every company, regardless of size, they all have an objective and business and goals and outcomes. What you find is that it's sometimes not documented or not well articulated or not well known or understood, but they're still there. They exist, right? And so the goal is about identifying, helping. I see it as how do we help those clients identify with clarity what is it that they want to do, their goals, and then they wrap the people approach around that, right? And it's understanding what I need to get done, when I need to do it, why I have to do it, right? So that is the what, and then you build out how do I develop the team and the people that are going to do that and to work on that, whether it's one person or 10, right? What do they have currently that they can help to accomplish that? And our model tries to identify the gaps, not the skill gaps, but the gaps in that individual's makeup or the gap in that individual's thinking and mindset, how adaptable they are. What's the best way for them to learn? How do they communicate, right? Do they communicate?
Exactly.
Let's say, and I love the example, let me use it as a quick example, the one that you brought up way back when, where people would go off to lunch and, there would be a flag or something that happens, they're off to lunch, and then the company just lost $2 million, right? In that hour, right? Because there's one guy who's running that component and he has to eat, right?
Well, he has to approve things as well, So even when he gets back, there's approval. Can you approve this? You have 5 approvals,
right? So if you think about like a model like ours, communication is an essential component of his job, right?
Yeah.
Now, had his boss been managing and working with him to say, this is an essential part of your job, you have to communicate. If you don't communicate and there's a fail, and that equates to X amount of millions of dollars, what he would then do now is set up his work or do something in a way that when he is not physically manning his station, if you will, something is manning the station that will trigger and then message and communicate, or someone will do that. But that falls within the communication of you have information that someone else needs to know to do something about, right? That's part of performance. So the way we look at that, and that's just a very simple, rudimentary way example. I don't believe that every scenario is just that straightforward and simple, but those are elements in terms of what leads to better performance and better outcomes for your business.
Hmm.
So if that helps answer that question for you. And Jake, please feel free to add more to that, Jake.
Yeah, I think with our offering, obviously, we're not looking at, like you said, at trying to just train people on this in a couple of days, and then kind of make that our primary offering. And we're actually looking at trying to build tooling that supports this, right? Because you can have the best methodology in the world, you can read a leading business book. The challenges in that are inherently not the knowledge or the methodology, right? That doesn't matter as much. It's how you implement it, right? That it typically falls apart. So the best methodology in the world, if you go and try to implement it, you're likely going to fail, and that's because there's nothing holding people accountable to follow that methodology day in and day out every day in their jobs, right? And so we view AI as being an opportunity to do that more so, right? You can arm people with an assistant that, as they're doing things, whether it's their hiring process, a manager's performance process that they follow regularly, they have an upcoming one-on-one, there's these tools that you can build with that methodology infused in them that can actually drive the daily practice of the methodology in a way that I think is fairly novel, thanks to AI. So that's kind of our approach and how it differs a little bit, right? Because to your point, a 5-day workshop, even if it's a 1-day workshop, right? You have people engaged the whole time. They're gonna walk out of there. They're gonna maybe try to do it for a few weeks. Then stuff's going to happen. They're going to forget about it, and it's going to be at the wayside and forgotten, right? And then you'll have gathered maybe $1,000 for the course, but then the long-term opportunity is not there anymore, right? So it's negative for both you and the client, where they're not actually seeing the lasting change from that. So that's part of where we want to kind of systematize it a little bit through a tool and a product that can go in hand with the methodology and training to really support that long-term, adoption and change management within the org to really drive that home and make it work. Yeah. And that I think really changes, AI changes that game a lot, and enables a lot of things that weren't possible even a few years ago, to really sort of, it's a different area than I see a lot of people focusing on AI too, right? Everyone's trying to build a customer service chatbot or something, right? And then this is potentially, more transformational within the HR performance space that can really, help with that. So.
Yeah, so what I've seen over the years, right, is when you have a consulting group that comes in and tries to sell a product, right, and you are right now, to me, it seems like you're focusing on your product. What is my product first? And there is always a difference between, the first point of entry, which is usually done through like a public relationship piece, right? Hey, we have this component. We think about, for example, Netflix. If you try to submit a video to Netflix, you're not going to be able to do it by just making a phone call, right? You have to go through an agent. So you have a list of potential gateways into global organizations where you can introduce yourself, and then once you're there, then you're deploying your product by saying, okay, we're going to have a team of people who are going to participate in this training. It's going to be either done by person or it's going to be done by online pre-made stuff that they have to follow through, right? So many people visualize themselves that if I'm going to do this, I'm actually going to be on site, I'm going to have a direct interaction with people. Well, that may be great, and you may get paid well for maybe a year or two, but eventually your product is going to become automated, and it will become visible through some YouTube, whatever it is out there, that people share and subscribe to. But that doesn't stop people from actually creating these products, okay? So it's like this DNA of an evolution of a product. You begin by thinking, what is the shelf life of my product today? Right? So if I have a feature or service that I'm providing today and the shelf life is going to end within 2 years because I've now given everything away, then you're going to have a problem again in 2 years. So, now your group changes because now you have to have a market research, you have to have a product research, and having to do this again and again and again. Now, I'm turning 60 this year, and I can tell you that this pattern, is resurfacing over and over and over. You think, oh, I have a solution for this, and it's gonna pay for my son's college, and it doesn't. Because things get more expensive and so on.
So the way that Jake and I are kind of looking at this from a product point of view and how we're trying to approach it, really isn't so much we have a product and we're trying to push the product, because we don't have one that exists right now. We're in developing. This is purely a R&D kind of phase of like this idea, this concept, right?
Yep.
My belief is that there are only a handful of things in the human existence, if you will, that won't ever get solved, right? Will always be something that is a pursuit. Number one is we all want to be healthy, right? And so whether you're underweight, overweight, or not healthy, there's no one that's going to say, I'm okay with being unhealthy. So there's always going to be something that, people want to do that. Second, the other two things, Jake and I were talking about it yesterday. One is every person wants to do a good job at whatever it is that they do.
Yeah.
Right? They want to do a good job. All right. Doesn't mean that.
Well, so let me break this into particular scenarios. Everybody wants to do a good job at the expense of others. Everybody wants to do a good job without the expense of others, right?
Right. Now, yes, we can go deeper than that. Some people want to be perceived as doing a good job, right?
Yep.
But at the end of the day, and so they want to do as little effort to get the most out of it from that, and vice versa. But everyone wants to do a good job, and every leader wants to be a good leader. There's no leader that says, I want to suck at being a leader, right? And so and they genuinely want to be good leaders. They may not be, and they may not do what's necessary. So my point is that part of this is for us to understand how to shape the thinking and the thought process. I don't believe you give them a product and say, here you go, that's going to make you a good leader, and now all of a sudden they're going to be a good leader. No, the neural pathways are already burned, and this is the way I've always done it, right? And I'm just going to continue to do it, especially when I'm under stress and pressure. However, when you kind of reshape the thinking, you reshape the neural pathways around, there is a better way to do this. Once I realized that, eating kale actually does make me feel better. It doesn't hurt my stomach as much, right? That established a new neural pathway, and that's something I've been doing for the last couple of years, right? So that's kind of how we see this and we're approaching it. Whether it's right or wrong, that's how we're doing it. And Jake and I are going to be in Las Vegas next week, doing a session and talking about about this kind of approach and this thinking, and it's not about the technology. While we'll have something in there that's technology related, it's about the approach, the thinking, the mindset, not the technology.
Yeah. So I put a note in. Maybe you can save these things when you end this meeting here. The decisions of a leader have an impact that isn't always easily visible to that leader and the board that the leader participates in. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that means that my contribution here with the CMDB is basically service impact management. How does a decision impact the ROI, day-to-day burn, EBITDA, the expenses for the CFO? And now you have something that people actually will listen to, because now you're reaching the individual tiers of a company where there's often just one or few decision makers that can easily understand what that impact is. Who made that decision? How many times have you seen this? We deployed a patch and we didn't test it, but we thought it was going to be good and it caused this outage. Okay, who made that decision? Is that documented anywhere, right? So,
well, there's no organization, let's make an assumption here, any mature organization that does not know that if we're going to release a patch, we have to test it, and it has to go through, the QA process, and there's standards and ISO and all those things, right? It's a matter of whether they do it. It's not because they don't know to do it, but they don't do it, and they do it anyway, right?
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
is the RCA, the root cause analysis, more of why was that decision made, right? And that's the mindset component, right? It's
Yeah.
not because they didn't know. It was like, I did it anyway because I, waited to the last minute, and then we just pushed it out, and I thought I would get in trouble. There's all sorts of reasons, right?
Yeah.
And so how do you remediate that is really truly understanding what the root cause is.
Right, so the CMDB has that impact assessment ability, right? Because you freeze in time a definition of a certain feature. Case example here, one of the clients that I work with was meticulous about not making a change in production, especially not on Friday afternoon or Friday period, okay? All the changes were usually done on Tuesday and Wednesday, and they never had an outage, never had a problem. Well, the other client I worked for never cared. Oh, we don't care. We're just going to put that in because we need it. Okay, so there was somebody with influence enough close to the trough to push a change, and then that particular change has slowly percolated into a problem that had to be investigated later, and it cost them $10 million. Okay, so in your Las Vegas presentation, hopefully you can consider these, maybe put them into your presentation and say, hey, just mention the CMDB for my benefit. The CMDB can give you this insight into these things, and this is what it does, okay? That puts me in a position where I actually, have some notoriety somewhere as far as a CMDB guy. Because CMDB, after 20 years being in production, it still isn't really discussed anywhere outside of these corporate companies who really push it down to just a small team and don't show the exposure on what does it do for the entire company and how does it actually have an impact on relationship between these companies. So, for example, one thing that was very dominating for me was that when one company bought another company, these both companies, or maybe even three companies, actually had a CMDB that was done on a different database, okay? But there was a CMDB that you can then export and migrate them together. So the inhalation of one company by another is much easier if you have a working CMDB that then migrate all the services and then find a relationship between, oh, this company is using ServiceNow, oh, this company is using BMC. Well, now we have this, conversion of data that is streamlined because it's been defined. But if it isn't defined and there is no CMDB, it becomes a nightmare. And those companies are actually not in demand at that point. You have financial analysis of that company where the CMDB is missing. Yeah.
So, what is the size of the CMDB market as a sub of the broader IT, annual spend? Do you know?
The size, percentage-wise, as a component of a production.
When I say size, so it's clear, I'm talking more of the financial, right? Is it a 30 billion annual, global or in the U.S. or North American market in terms of what companies would spend on CMDB as a subset of the overall IT budget?
The assessment there is difficult to give you because it's like it's like going into McDonald's and say, hey, how do you make your cheeseburger? And I don't know if you watched the Founder movie with Michael Keaton in it, right? They broke down every single step of what they're doing, right? And in that piece, the CMDB would be a grid that shows first put the bun down, then put the meat down, then put the lettuce down. So if you take that grid away, every time somebody had to make a new cheeseburger, they would have to figure out how to recreate that again over and over and over. So in this case, the CMDB is basically that piece that remains the same. It doesn't change because it's already defined in the database, and it's been that way over 20 years.
But CMDBs are primarily used by very large organizations, governments,
yes,
and IT operations shops primarily, right? That are very focused on IT operations.
Exactly.
Are you kind of proposing that maybe the concept can be broadened to more companies, right? That this architecture can almost be used for more general business, right? So like a company that's more, use it more in the HR side, even if they don't have like an IT operations, function, they could take the concept of the CMDB and if it's broadened, maybe use it for their business lines, right? How they connect revenue to cost in different areas. Is that kind of part of what you're saying, or are you
So
saying
yeah, I
that
mean,
the
there's
technology is?
there's
Sorry,
a
go ahead.
threshold, where you actually reach that the expenses on the CMDB exceed the benefit. Okay, so yes, corporate enterprise level companies were the first benefactors of it. Why? Because they can spend the extra money on it, and like I said, in many cases, it's somewhere around $1 million a year or something like that, right? So you get to a point where you try to sell it to a small business. Okay, so I used AI to write CMDB in Python. I just explained to AI what is it that I'm trying to do, and then AI gave me a CMDB code that I was able to actually deploy and use with the SQLite on my Macintosh. Okay, so that's free. I didn't have to spend any money on it other than talking to AI and then picking an AI and so on. So can you then create a product where the CMDB can be deployed within a small organization? Let's say, for some reason here in Austin, I picked the food truck industry because I noticed they're struggling here. And I realized that the people that are working in that field, they just want to cook. They don't want to deal and add in any other element. But then again, you have things like Square that helps you put your product online and then allows customers to buy your product. Well, Square would be benefiting from the CMDB because it would not just do the internal structures of their production, but it would also do the detection of components within that food truck. So the food truck usually has a computer, has some sort of a POS system, point of sale, has an online website. So all these components would be created into a model and visualized as you get into Square. Right? So now you have to talk to Square and say, okay, I want to show you the CMDB that shows and detects the modeling of the CMDB of that business within Square. And then here you can show this to your customers who can then visualize how things are connected, which is in many cases it's missing, is that these food vendors, they have a hard time visualizing what it is that they're actually paying for, right? Fees, licenses, blah, 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 locations, et cetera, et cetera. So that's like that's the extreme, from enterprise down to a small business. Somewhere in the middle is where it really begins to pay off, unless somebody invests money without any expectation of money return coming back soon.
So, Jake, as what you were describing in terms of application elsewhere, always is an opportunity. And I think the polar extreme of the other end of the spectrum is where I was thinking is also an opportunity, which is where is there a talent specific, not proprietary, but niche offering that's for CMP, right? And that connects that's core that kind of group, that audience, and can elevate them, and that sort of that function, not just the concept of CMDB, but the people who are around it, right? The people who are facilitating it. It would be you, Daniel, like you as an advisor or consultant, or the role that you play, working with your clients.
So. Exactly. By the way, if I may, it's CMDB, not CMBD. CMDB, yeah.
Excuse my ignorance and my, I'm sorry, yeah. No worries. CMDB, yeah, DB, got it.
Yeah.
Cool. So, next steps, right? I know we're out of time now. One thought, an idea maybe you can have is, Daniel, can you take a current use case that you see now with maybe one of the groups that you're working with, anonymize it, right? But it's really more about the scenario, the situation, and allow both Jake and I to look at that, right? And really try to see what questions we would have, what are we trying to understand, and obviously it needs to be more, what's the problem, right? What needs to be addressed and what needs to be solved, not just right now, but in the long term, right?
Right.
And that, I think, can give us a better way to determine is there something here or not.
Okay. I will do that. I think I already have a video I can forward to you where basically it uses my AI approach. I documented it to show what is the CMD, why would I need it, and where has it failed and where has it succeeded. Okay.
Cool. All right. Well, you have our email addresses and our info, so good stuff.
All right.
All right. Take care. We'll be in touch later this week.
All right, guys.
Nice to meet
Have a good
you.
one. Nice to meet you.
All right. Bye.